keyboard to the boardroom. This is the business of esports. As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner YouGov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post-podcast live stream. I am Paul Doalibi. I'm joined today by my friends and co-hosts, Judge Jimmy Barada, Jeff the Juice Cohen, Lindsay the Boss Poss. For those of you who are new here, welcome. What we do here is we cover all the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. And best of all, we get to do it live with you guys. You get to participate, get in our faces, ask questions, challenge us. We encourage it. We know so many of you watch and lurk, but please feel free. It's a safe space. Ask questions, get involved. It makes it that much more fun for all of us. How are you guys all doing this week? Lindsay, how you doing? Lindsay, we don't hear you. Jeff, how are you doing? There you go.
Yeah,
enjoying my hot chocolate for the week. We start every episode now talking about my hot chocolate. I don't know why. I'm sorry about that. Stupid. I'm doing good.
Lindsay, sorry, go ahead.
It's fine. The Yeti failed me. I'm so mad. I'm doing good, but I had to move my whole setup downstairs. And as you can see, it's caused some issues.
Why did you get pushed to the basement?
I'm on the first floor, not the basement.
Okay.
But I actually wanted to be down here because the attic is kind of chilly. So it was my own doing.
It was your own doing.
Yeah.
Very nice. Johan says, great to be back in the U.S. and catch you guys live. It's been almost a year. Wow, Johan, welcome back, and thank you for tuning in. Good to have you back in the U.S. Robert says, hello. Robert, welcome. Always great to see you. Guys, we have so much. The amount of news this week is ridiculous. First, Happy New Year to everybody. I literally forgot to say it on both podcasts I was on today. Thank you to Jimmy and Jeff for remembering to wish all of our listeners and viewers a happy new year. But happy new year to all of you guys. So fun to come back in the new year and get to do this live stream with all of you. I hope everyone had a great new year. Guys, before we jump into anything, can I just tease the guest we had on the podcast today? Because it was amazing. We had none other than Jonathan Pan. And for those of you who don't know, John is the head of strategy and operations at Facebook Gaming. Not only that, he was the head of content and head of strategy and operations at Amazon Games. He did product management and product stuff at Riot Games. So the man has had this very long career in gaming, very successful career in gaming. Had tremendous insight into what he saw at Riot and Amazon, obviously. So I'm just super excited for you guys to listen to this episode tomorrow. It was a lot of fun. We probably could have filled 3 hours. We literally had to just cut it off at an hour, but could easily have filled 2 or 3 episodes. I did promise him that we would have him back because I wanted to do another hour. That's how much fun it was. So definitely hope everyone tunes into that tomorrow. At some point in the future, we'll have to have him on the live stream too. I'm worried for his sake. On a live stream that can't be edited.
No filter.
No filter. The
Not
hot
few,
takes
only
might
a
fly.
few can hang with the juice.
Only if you can hang with the juice. This is right. All right, guys. Let's we have a lot to get to, so I don't want to waste too much time here. I'm just trying to get this screen shared for whatever reason. It's not working. But let's start with our favorite, our folks at 100 Thieves, and this is a bit of drama. I'll call it drama. Sorry, I'm trying to get the link here. Drama that happened between Dr. Disrespect and Nadeshot and G2 Carlos. Here we go. And let me just sort of explain what actually happened here, if you guys can see this. So what actually happened here, the headline is G2 Carlos and Nadeshot rebuff Dr. Disrespect's claim that unless you're FaZe, esports orgs don't make money. So the doc, in his infinite wisdom, basically said, not basically, quoted, saying, unless you're FaZe, esports orgs don't make money. Okay. And you can see the tweet here. And Carlos from G2 comes in and says, FaZe made minus 17 million in EBITDA with just above 50 million in revenue. G2 and couple others' actual business looks miles ahead of theirs, and it's not even close. Their revenue is pumped up by acting like a bank through individual sponsorship deals for their talent. Business is a literal hole. Hold on. Okay, so that's what G2 Carlos said.
Wow.
And then Nadeshot piped up and said, lay off the gin and tonics, doc. So some spicy drama between the doc and G2 Carlos and Nadeshot. I'm curious what you guys make of this. Jimmy, maybe start with you.
Yeah, sure.
Your thoughts?
My first thought was how much I loved Carlos's response, because one, unfiltered, also two, just like slamming him with facts, and three, it's just like, Doc, how, I don't want to say ignorant, but like he knows more about the space than I could hope to have. Doc's in the limelight day in and day out for years now, building up one of the most recognizable brands, and that's just such a senseless comment to say that I don't know about FaZe Clan in particular, because they are probably one of the worst examples of a profitable business, I would imagine. So I love Carlos kind of just slamming him with facts. To me, the most interesting part about that exchange is Nadeshot chiming in, and Nadeshot also not pulling punches, and also taking the G2 side, because
Cool.
that 100 Thieves is another strong brand, another brand I'm sure that's having trouble monetizing, a brand we've covered recently with a raise, and which we can only assume is because they're bleeding cash and need to fund, even they came out and said they're not interested in being profitable. So man, I'm just drooling over here. I wish I read this story earlier so I could better formulate something to say. I'm just gonna say I love it. It's juicy for sure, and like it kind of gives me second thoughts about Doc running his own game, because if you don't know the industry that you're in, you know what I mean? Like, what else is lacking? I know that's an overstatement.
No, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
I took this to mean though that the doc was talking just about revenue, not necessarily like because I feel like when the doc said they're the only ones making money, I think he kind of meant like top, like just like literally making revenue, I assume. But even that we know isn't true, right? Because we know now the revenue they're making based on them having filed it, and it's actually not very impressive relative. I think forget his name from G2 actually was right that other companies have more. I do think my one thing about Nadeshot, he came in with a funny comment, lay off the gin and tonics. I would have been more impressed if he came in and said like, well, 100 Thieves did 100 million in revenue, and like we could be making money if we wanted to right now. Like if he had said that, I'd be like, all right, props, Nadeshot. Like that's kind of backing it up. But just to make that comment like, oh, lay off the gin and tonics, like to me, that's not a great comeback when someone says like, hey, your business doesn't make money, and your response is like, oh, bro, like that's not to me like a great, well-reasoned business argument.
it's a great point. Are we surprised that that's all you get from a guy named Nadeshot? Like, this is not Satya Nadella coming back going, lay off the gin and tonics, right? Like, it's
Elon Musk
Nadeshot,
would
right?
do that, though.
It's like high school dropout Call of Duty player, like lucked into running an esports business. Like, you know, I think this was the expected response from him. I mean, the question for you guys is like, is this like the pot calling the kettle black here, right? Lindsay, I don't know. Is this a bit like none of them are making money? So like they're all making fun of each other. I mean, I don't know. I see them correcting the doc, but 100 Thieves just did this story proudly proclaiming they don't make money. They're not profitable, right? Like proudly.
Yeah, I mean, I think the doc was definitely coming in a little bit too hot, but I think that there's some underlying things there that are definitely true about the profitability of these businesses. But I guess what surprises me the most is that he's the one saying it because he's the one who like wants to be in on this. So why would you crap on an industry that you're also trying to kind of get into?
Could it be like, that the doc never got his esports team, right? And this is him sort of just like you may not see him criticizing game developers now, right? Because he's got his own game development studio, right? He may not come out and say, well, like 85% of new game development studios fail, like, by the way, right? Like, because he's got his own now, whereas he doesn't have his own esports org, so it's sort of easy for him to say.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. It's just kind of like a weird and pointless shot to take, I guess, is the thing. I don't necessarily. I think
that's a good point.
There's parts of it that are true, but it's just like who cares? First of all, like I don't care about his opinion on teams. Honestly, he doesn't run one, and secondly, it's just not his thing. So like, why say it? Who cares?
Well, to be fair, just so you guys see, it was in response to Jake Lucky, who said, in the past 6 months, TSM has lost Myth, Daquan, Hamlin, Snipedown, Bjergsen, and the director of esports operations. What is happening? And his response was, what do you mean is happening? Unless your FaZe esports orgs don't make money. In other words, TSM, I guess, couldn't afford to keep all these people.
Well, so I think we're not giving Doc enough credit here, where like I think we're taking him way too literally when he says like unless you're FaZe. I think what he's kind of saying, and maybe I'm putting words in his mouth, is the teams that are doing well are the ones like FaZe that have content creators and focus on content creation, which also happens to be what Doc does. And you know, this team, TSM, not being able to pay some or choosing not to pay some of their best players is actually, this is something we've talked about many times on the podcast. Like a lot of these teams that play in franchise leagues or spend a lot of money on salaries are not making money because realistically the money is coming from eyeballs, content creation, doing things on the side, collaborations, not winning esports tournaments. So like maybe that's what the doc meant and just didn't word it correctly. So people are thinking, oh, he's saying the only team that works is FaZe. Maybe he was speaking more broadly about something that I think we all agree on, actually.
That's honestly how I took it, but I still just feel like this is such a useless comment. Why not be like, oh, teams are pointless. Everyone should be influencers, or we should focus on content creation. That's where the money is.
That's sort of what he said, but just a little bit more politically correct.
I was going to say, unless FaZe Doc is, you know, somewhere on the horizon. But I don't know if that's the conclusion you draw here. Chris says, non-answer from Nadeshot speaks volumes. Yeah, I agree with that. Considering they paid for an article talking about how they're not profitable. I mean, like, Chris also says, look no further than Vitality raising $50 million for their new CSGO roster. Chris, I have that article teed up. We are going to talk about it. So I'm so happy you mentioned that. It is something I'm going to get to. I just want to stick with sort of the Nadeshot 100 Thieves here for a second, because there was another article this week that mentioned him and what I think is maybe the hottest take of them all this week by far. And the headline here is, Activision comes under fire from members of Call of Duty esports scene. And I think this is one of the first times we've seen something like this, where this was in a tweet. Nadeshot stated, I'm reading directly here from the article. This is direct quote from Nadeshot's tweet. He says, I went to our board of directors pleading for us to get back into competitive Call of Duty. I said, let's spend the money. Let's give our community what they're asking for. Just trust me and I'll make sure LA Thieves is a success. 2 years later, I guess I'm the fool. Clearly unhappy with their Call of Duty League investment. Clearly has not panned out. According to the article, the LA Thieves invested about $25 million to enter the league, not counting whatever else I guess they've spent in those 2 years. But is this the beginning of, I don't want to go down sort of the road of bashing Call of Duty League because we've done that plenty, but like, are we going to start seeing the dominoes fall here from an owner's standpoint, right? Because up until now, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, we had heard any owner complain publicly. Like we may have heard things behind the scenes or whatever, but like publicly, I don't think we heard anybody. Do you think we start hearing ownership groups start to be public about their dissatisfaction here? Jeff, maybe start with you.
I mean, the answer is probably yes. I think one of the reasons why we haven't heard it is because a lot of these ownership groups are, let's face it, multi-billionaires who own other sports teams, and it's just not that high up on their priority list to be terribly concerned, I think, about what's going on with the Call of Duty League. To say something publicly, I'm willing to bet that most of them are having conversations with, whether it's Bobby Kotick or whoever the powers that be are at Activision, pressing to make changes to change the economics. But you're not going to see a Robert Kraft come out and say he just has bigger and more important things to worry about, I think. But it's really interesting from Nadeshot. And it's probably the first time I've heard Paul say something positive about Nadeshot. So it only took him bashing Activision Blizzard to get a somewhat of a compliment from Paul.
It took him admitting what the truth, really. I mean, that's let's face it. He admitted the truth. Lindsay, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on this, but we can move on. I have one other sort of Activision story here. I just want to connect.
Ooh, yeah. Bring me more Activision.
Okay, let me give you this. It's related in that it's also Activision, but I thought I wanted to group these together. And this one here is Activision in more sort of getting themselves embroiled in more legal drama, I would say. And the headline here is Activision sues company distributing Call of Duty cheats. Well, this is not Call of Duty League related, but they are suing Engine Owning. And this is a company that advertises cheats for Call of Duty games. Basically, they want to shut down this company, so they're suing them. I'm curious what you guys think in terms of anti-cheating efforts, right? Like if we have sort of, stronger anti-cheat being one option, and we know Riot sort of took this path of an anti-cheat that runs at a very core level. Like if anyone who plays Valorant knows, like Riot's anti-cheat runs as close to, call it, the kernel of the operating system as possible. You have to restart your computer if there's any updates to that anti-cheat system. Versus, I guess, Activision Blizzard's path, which is we can't defeat the cheating, so let's sue the companies making the cheats. Jimmy, as an ex-lawyer, you must love this strategy, right? This is good business.
I think whenever you have to take something to a court of law, it's a losing situation for most people. And you hit it on the head when I read this. I was just like, well, I guess they're giving up on just making an anti-cheat that works, and they're just going to try and sue the company, even though that's not going to do anything either but waste time. And it's like this public facade, like, oh, look how hard we're trying to make it a safe gaming place. Even though CSGO and Fortnite and countless other titles have nailed anti-cheat, and Activision just can't get it done, and they're now just throwing money out the window on a lawsuit that's not going to change anything either. You sue one, you shut down one company, 100 others are going to jump up in their place, and the only way to stop the cheating is maybe they should ban the IP, right? All they're doing are banning accounts. These cheaters are then just creating new accounts. It's meaningless. So continues to show that they don't care about their gamers or their community. And it's a big reason why I gave up on that title. And I was forced to play it last night, and I'm still upset about it. If my squad is listening,
I gave up on it, but I played it last night.
Well, it was the first time, Jeff, we played in about 2 months, and we played Halo also. And I told Paul we're going to get back into Fortnite, but last night we did play for about 30 minutes until I complained enough to make a switch. So that was good.
Matt says Bobby just gets it. This will clearly solve all the institutional problems at Activision Blizzard. Yes. You're right. This is the solution. Chris says, who makes more money, Activision's legal team or their COD programming team? My money would be on the legal team if you were Activision Blizzard at this point. I mean, Jeff or Lindsay, I guess, do either of you believe that this will actually, forget about solving the cheating problem, will this slow the cheating problem? And will we see other companies, use a similar method as a consequence?
No and no.
Really? Not even 5% better?
No.
You guys are very
Negative-
You guys are
negative
way too
percent.
You're way too bearish on this. Like, why are you so negative on this? They tried to
Because legal
stop it. They
proceedings
couldn't
are
stop it, so
big,
they
slow-moving things that take forever, and it's gonna. And also, not all of these are even within the U.S. In fact, a large majority of them aren't. That just complicates everything tenfold at minimum. And in the meantime, a bunch of other people can do a bunch of other things to continue cheating in Warzone because none of the underlying structural issues are fixed.
True.
No, terrible strategy. And I don't think anyone else will sue cheaters. Because most people just fix the game.
Exactly.
You guys, I mean, Jeff, I was hoping you were going to be the one sort of.
No, I'm trying to
backer
defend
of
it. I
this
mean,
strategy.
I'm not, gonna take this to the hill that I'll die on, here. But like, I think if they've tried other avenues and haven't been able to fix it, then this is not a bad. At least they're doing something, right? Like, it would be worse if they were like, well, we just couldn't figure it out and we're gonna do nothing because we don't care. I think this is like they've tried, right? They created an anti-cheat software, didn't they? Like, that was something that they were pitching and all excited on. Obviously, it didn't work. That's not good, but they're still trying. So I don't think it's fair to be like they don't care about their players or something like that. They obviously just didn't do a good job developing the anti-cheat software, which is a black mark, but I don't think it says like that they're not trying to fix the problem.
That's
Yeah,
the exact,
I mean,
that's the exact PR campaign I would run if I was at Activision Blizzard. Look, guys, we're trying. We're not listening to you or doing anything of substance, but we're trying.
well, I mean, look, I'm no Activision Blizzard apologist. It is better than nothing, right? It's one's greater than zero here.
It's wasting money on
This
something
is
that's
true.
they're never going to get a result from this.
It's a good thing I'm not an Activision Blizzard shareholder because then I might care.
To Lindsay's point, you could have spent a fraction of these legal fees in a small PR campaign that would have the exact same effect. And that's,
True.
We're sorry we tried, even though we're $1 billion company and could absolutely fix this if we cared.
True. Very
It's
true.
disgraceful.
Chris says Nintendo sues ROM sites. Who needs new ROM site addresses? I mean, that actually is a great point. If anything, it will help the other cheating sites, right? Which I assume their business will go up as a consequence of taking out whatever this one is. I assume it's one of the bigger ones that they decided to go after. All right, guys, I have 3 sort of celebrity / influencer stories, and I want to do them back to back here because I think they're kind of fun. And I just want to start because we mentioned the doc. Let's start with the doc here again, coming back to him. And the headline here is Dr. Disrespect jabs Twitch in Twitter New Year's resolutions. So he put this post. I mean, New Year is a great sort of time for these kinds of, drama posts. But if you see here the tweet that he put up, I'll try and make this photo bigger. Yeah, there we go. Dr. Disrespect's 2022 resolutions. Okay, and I'll read them here. The first one, 100 million raised for Midnight Society. By a show of hands, who thinks he's going to raise 100 million for Midnight Society this year? Really?
100
I do.
million?
Yeah, I think he does. I think he does. Just given the state of the industry, like I don't think that's that crazy of a number for a game development studio. You have to think they're going to have to hire 40 to 100 people, you would think, right? Like
Oh,
minimum.
Midnight Society is his. I'll go with that. I
Oh,
thought Midnight
yeah.
Society. I thought it was a charity.
Me too.
No, that's the game development studio.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think he'll
I
raise
think he will.
100 million for that. Yes.
We're all
Yeah.
idiots.
Number 2 in his list of resolutions, bourbon business. Who here thinks we see that in 2022?
I am so in for that.
Sure.
I hope that he does that.
You would
I
buy
will
Doc
finally
bourbon.
become a Doc fan. Oh, I love bourbon.
Number 3, release music album. To me, that's like a no-brainer, right? He's already done music, and it's good music, Lindsay. You got to listen to it if you haven't already. I mean, he's made some bangers. The second last one here says DocCon 22. Well, I guess some doc-centered conference get together. Fan, no,
Wouldn't
no
it
one
be
wants
funny
to go
if
to
actual?
DocCon.
Wouldn't it be funny if actual doctors showed up and we're like, man,
That's
wrong thing.
But the most interesting and the one I wanted to discuss here was the last one, and it's highlighted even in his tweet. It says unbanned and massive payment with nothing else. Just says unbanned and massive payment. Obviously, he's talking about Twitch here. Who here thinks we finally find out in 2022 why Doc was banned, or we see him unbanned, go back to Twitch, or not go back, but get a massive payment from Twitch? To call that out is ballsy. You got to admit, Jimmy. I don't know.
I think it
You're
was
his
also in
lawyer.
the Twitch font. It was hard to read. I think it was also in the Twitch font, actually, so it wasn't all that subtle. If that looked like that to you guys,
It was highlighted. It was like in
was
pink
just
and
highlighted.
purple, where the
Got
other
it.
stuff was not.
Got it. Sorry, I was trying to lean in to get a better look. Lindsay made a good point earlier, right? Like the legal process is so slow. So for there to be that much traction here, there would have to be a settlement, is my guess. I don't know what the timetable looks like with his legal battle against Twitch, but and I'm also not privy to like what's in that agreement, what were in the terms, and what they are required to share and not. So a lot of this is just pure speculation. It's obvious it's a clear shot at Twitch. It's obvious he thinks he's owed a lot of money. Twitch obviously disagrees, and Twitch could bury him financially if they choose to. So I don't think Twitch needs to do anything but play a slow game and see how much it's really what this effort is worth to him. That's out of that long list of things that I don't really care for. I'm just like rolling my eyes here or there. It's smart, I guess. You want a bourbon. Sure, it worked for a lot of musicians and actors. Maybe it'll work here. But the music album, I know you guys like that. A lot of these things, I'm rolling my eyes. Like whatever you can do to expand your brand, I guess, more power to you. If anything, it'll be a nice case study for another streamer and the rest of the community at large to see really how strong, right, our influence and pull are in this world. But that last thing with Twitch, it's last on that list, not to make a point. I think it's last on that list because it's the least likely. It's how that's my take on it.
I mean, Jimmy, the thing is, like, this graphic looked produced, right? This is not.
Yep.
This is not something he threw together like, January 1st over, like, while he was sitting, having breakfast, and he just, typed out a list on Twitter on his phone, right? Like this was a produced graphic. If you're Doc's legal team, right? And we don't know anything about the situation. We don't know why he got banned still. We don't know who owes who what. We don't know any of that. But like, why would you call this out? Does it make good business sense? Does it make good legal sense, you think, to call this out publicly, when clearly none of it is resolved?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think when you're Doc size, you're still outsourcing your legal capability. And no matter how big you are, even if you have an in-house attorney, when you go to litigation, and I always make this reference to Silicon Valley, the in-house lawyer recommended to the team, like, oh, now we need to get you litigators, and it's another 2 million. And Richard and all the Silicon team was like, what? They thought the in-house lawyer was going to handle that for them. There's all these various specialties. People think a lawyer is a one-size-fits-all model when really they're highly specialized experts that rarely deviate from their own lanes and areas. So Doc is outsourcing. Since he's in litigation, he might have a general counsel or someone that runs his brand that he trusts. But for this lawsuit, he's definitely using a firm that specializes in litigation. And the more detached you are from your client, the harder they are to control. And Doc is already hard to control. He's a loudmouth. We know that. That's why he's in this situation in the first place. You know, he's streaming on toilets and making all this crazy stuff that he does that makes him fun to watch. You know, I'm not bashing him as a brand. He's entertaining, but as a business, that's hard to control. I don't think the lawsuit, the lawyers related to the lawsuit probably had any knowledge or help with this. You're obviously, yeah, it's a graphic put together by his PR, by his brand managers, by everyone else that's involved. Obviously, a lot of these are not just, you know, Babe Ruth calling shots. These are like things that are in the works behind the scenes that he's releasing. But the legal thing, that's just, it's not a cheap shot. It's just like, it's just a comment to make a comment. You know, there's no strategy in saying that or in not saying that. If anything, the strategy is in not saying it, because the more you say, the worse it typically is for you. And when you get to litigation, they usually tell you to keep your mouth shut.
Well, yeah, that was my concern, right? Like, I'm surprised that he would open his mouth about this, given that
Possession is 9/10 of the law. I don't know how that applies here, but that's all I got.
What I'm saying, though,
more legal advice.
even though he opened his mouth, Paul, it's like he's just not saying anything. It's just it's a comment about nothing.
That's
Salino and Barnes, the injury attorneys.
That's what I was going to point out too, is obviously there's something pretty probably intricate or complicated going on, because if it wasn't maybe as high level or as intense as it was, then I think the doc would be making a lot more comments and have a lot more exciting commentary. And I do think that even though this is obvious, like, we're very clear on what he's talking about and what he means by this, it is interesting how sort of veiled it still all is, and how little he's really said, which does point to this being a long process and potentially very complicated case of things, for someone who is so active in the community to stay as silent as he has, and only to make kind of thinly veiled jokes.
Did you guys see the article? And this might be the next article you're pulling up, Paul, so I don't know. But where Doc said that if he had gone to Mixer with Shroud and Ninja, it would have worked.
No.
Did you guys see that comment?
No.
Didn't.
Recently?
I think it was this week. I'll try to pull it up.
But there's a great point to be made, which is one of the questions we asked John Pan on the podcast was why he thinks Mixer failed. Just because, you know, he's the head of operations and strategy at Facebook Gaming. Obviously, I think he had great insight into why Mixer failed. So definitely worth a listen just for his answer on that. Chris says Doc has been reading the Hype Handbook by Michael Shine. # not an ad. Chris, I'm curious. I haven't read it. Is it good? And if he's following that playbook, that makes a lot of sense. Guys, I want to move on to the next celebrity. Okay. Obviously, we're still in the gaming universe here, but the next celebrity I want to talk about is Gordon Ramsay. Believe it or not, Gordon Ramsay in the gaming news. And it's funny because I literally just watched this show last night. It's his new cooking show called Next Level Chef. Okay. And the headline here is Gordon Ramsay heading to Twitch? Celebrity chef reaches out to live streaming platform asking what the F is Twitch, and hears back from XQC. So just to give you guys some context, in this show, one of the people competing, one of the contestants is Trisha. Trisha is Birdie from Twitch. She's a chef. She streams on Twitch. She's very entertaining, great chef. And she's one of the contestants on Gordon Ramsay's new show, Next Level Chef. And when he asks her sort of where's she from, what's her background, she tells him, you know, I'm a Twitch streamer. And his response immediately, and this made it into the show, was, what the F is Twitch? And so I was amazed to see after watching this last night that this had made news. There's the video here of where he asks her and he responds, what the F is Twitch? And then all of a sudden that turned into sort of a whole back and forth between Gordon Ramsay and Twitch. He says, hey, Twitch, can I get a lesson on what you are? And Twitch says, of course, but let's go big. we'll teach you how to live stream if you teach us how to cook a proper Wellington. And then XQC jumps in and he says, I'll give you a free rundown. Call me on my cell. America's next master streamer. And Gordon says, you mean next level streamer? Because his new show is obviously called Next Level Chef, right? And so there's this like back and forth with XQC and Twitch and Gordon Ramsay. And there seems to be a lot of teasing that he's going to do something on Twitch. Food is one of those places. I don't know if gaming has sort of conquered yet. I will tell you that I have some thoughts on this, but I'm curious what you guys think in terms of Gordon Ramsay on Twitch and this whole back and forth. Is it another Ninja and Drake moment? Like, will Ramsay and XQC be a Ninja and Drake moment?
This feels right up Lindsay's alley.
Lindsay?
I mean, as someone who largely consumes their food content on YouTube, there's obviously a huge opportunity to do a lot more food stuff on Twitch. I don't necessarily know if Gordon Ramsay is going to be the one that leads that. But I would love it. I do think it's more like a Ninja Drake situation though, like a really exciting one-off. I don't think it's like unfortunately, I don't think we're quite there yet with food content, but maybe one day.
But there's to me, there's a lot of interesting ways to take this conversation, right? One is like, in some ways, the Ninja Drake moment was massive for gaming, right? Mm-hmm. Turned Ninja into a way more mainstream star than he was before, but also kind of, and I don't really mean this, but I'm exaggerating to make a point. Destroyed like his gamer cred, right? Like as soon as he went mainstream, he wasn't as cool as a gamer. And I'm wondering if this may be the same kind of moment for XQC, right? All of a sudden, the entire world will know about XQC if he does a stream with Gordon Ramsay. But does he lose sort of his credibility as XQC the gamer, you know, the guy who says anything that comes to his mind?
I mean, if they sit down and play Call of Duty, maybe, but if they're going to make a beef Wellington, I don't think so.
Like, you think this is no risk to XQC's sort of live streaming dominance?
No, actually, one of my favorite things that Ninja did was being on a YouTube cooking channel that I love. It's not taking away from his gaming credibility because they're cooking. If they were playing games, it might take away from his gaming credibility.
I mean, one of the things that I think is worth mentioning is if anyone has watched XQC's stream in the last 3-4 months, a lot of his content has been him watching MasterChef seasons, old seasons of MasterChef. Like literally, he has gone through maybe 2 or 3 full seasons of MasterChef and reacted and commented. He's watching them live every night, right? These shows with his chat. Does this feel maybe a bit manufactured? Could that be? Am I too tinfoil hat here?
I had that sense. I thought when I read this back and forth that maybe it was premeditated or designed. Just such a, I don't know. You know, music does that a lot as well, where they'll create this fake beef or these fake issues for people to get into because it'll boost album sales. But regardless, I don't know. I think it sounds pretty cool, honestly. If we already know that there are live streaming chef networks and shows, not just YouTube, but also, you know, just like how Twitch is, but for chefs and people that want to show off their cooking skills. And if there's a strong overlap here, who knows where else it can go. We saw what, you know, the fashion and the cooking shows did. Now you can, there's makeup contestant shows, there's glass blowing ones, really good, by the way, on Netflix. There's all kinds of these contestant, you know, winner take all, who's the best at their craft kind of thing. So I don't know. I'd probably watch a couple episodes, if not just because I like XQC and want to see him in that environment. It's like watching Hot Ones. You know, I don't watch every single episode, but if they have an interesting guest, I'll probably check that one out. And there's a natural crossover there, and maybe that's all they're counting on.
I mean, Chris brings up a good thought here. Unintentional IP consequences coming for Twitch. I mean, that was maybe what was most surprising for me. Like, Gordon Ramsay interacted with XQC on Twitter. I'm sure someone on Gordon's team, like, you know, looked at XQC's VODs and saw all the MasterChef he's been watching, right? Like, I'm surprised it's so cordial. Or this is what makes me sort of think maybe this is manufactured, right? Like, why has no one slapped XQC with a DMCA takedown for his, broadcasting episodes of MasterChef? Thoughts on that, Jeff?
I think it's one of those things where it's good. It's good brand halo and getting the, if you own the MasterChef IP, why wouldn't you want XQC out there streaming it, bringing new people to your product, even if they are not necessarily watching it, so you're not getting the advertising eyeballs. To me, like, it's not, I don't think it's that big of a consequence to your brand to lose those eyeballs. But let's say you're one of those million people or however many people XQC has at a time watching. The next time you see MasterChef on TV, even if XQC is not streaming it, you might start watching it. So to me, like, these are people who probably were never going to watch it anyway. And you're getting a free, basically, brand extension and marketing from XQC. Like, how much would it cost you to pay XQC to play a game if you're a publisher?
Totally.
Literally probably millions of dollars. MasterChef is getting that advertising for free. So, like, to me, that's probably why. I don't know whether if there's a side deal behind the scenes and why that's why all this is happening. It's certainly fun to put our tinfoil hats on. But yeah, I mean, to me, this story is more about the creator economy and kind of just the power of people's brands and Twitch as a live streaming distribution platform than a gaming story. Despite the fact that XQC kind of tried to wedge his way in there, I think this was just really about, Twitch and the power of creators.
Well, let's do one last story here, because I think that theme of the power of creators is the perfect segue to this last, call it, influencer story. And here, a huge name, massive name, maybe probably bigger than Gordon Ramsay even. And we're talking about Paris Hilton here. And the headline is, Paris Hilton extends Cardi B an enticing invitation following massive Roblox celebration. And so the article is about Paris's island in Roblox called Paris World. And I guess I actually haven't checked it out myself, but this virtual island has been a huge success for her. And she tweeted out, "Happy New Year" to Cardi B, and said, heard you were talking about Roblox. Come check out #Paris World. And the question I had for you guys, I mean, I feel like already living in this alternate reality, if you want to call it the metaverse, where we have interactions between Paris Hilton and Cardi B about the metaverse and Roblox and virtual worlds, which I love. Like, to me, all these small indicators of going mainstream. But have we, like, in some ways, sorry, let me frame this question. Has the whole metaverse conversation that Roblox, Minecraft, and those kinds of games, those metaverse conversations sort of leapfrogged the gaming conversations from a mainstream perspective, right? Like, has the metaverse gone mainstream faster than gaming went mainstream? I don't know if that makes sense as a question. I don't know if you guys know what I mean, but like, I'm looking at this interaction between Paris Hilton and Cardi B about a virtual world in Roblox. First of all, neither of those two stars to me scream like Roblox demographic, yet this has been a success. And the fact that Paris is inviting Cardi B to her virtual island, like, will we start seeing all these big influencers with virtual properties that, they'll be inviting each other to? I'm just curious, where do you guys think it's going? And has the metaverse conversation leapfrogged the gaming conversation in sort of the mainstream's mind?
Lindsay, you can go first. You're the expert on Paris Hilton.
First of all, I told you all that this would work.
This is true. The boss was right.
And Jeff was the one that was like, "But isn't she only like the 30-year-olds?" No.
I did say that. I'll admit, I did say that.
Yeah.
That's
totally
also
wrong.
how you sound. So.
But no, I see your point, Paul, but I'm gonna disagree with you because this is you guys are gonna laugh at me, I swear. But no, this is Paris Hilton. Paris Hilton is one of the first people that was ever even considered an influencer. She was the first one to do a fragrance. She was the first one to turn her like sort of fame into this whole famous for being famous thing. She was one of the first people to get into another line like music. She was one of the first stars to have her own cooking show.
She did
And
music.
Paris
I didn't even know
Hilton
that.
is so special when it comes to recognizing how to insert herself into opportunities that build her brand. And she is incredibly adept at doing this. It's amazing. So I'm not surprised that she's the one who's figured out that Roblox is a good way of branding herself, and the metaverse is like sort of the next step. I don't think that I see a lot of celebrities following in her footsteps because I think she's just a brilliant business person when it comes to that. So I don't think that that conversation is leapfrogged yet, except for with those special few people like Paris Hilton who actually recognize the opportunity. But there's very few who actually do that.
Interesting. So you what you're saying is you think Paris is really the exception. This is not the rule.
I think she's smarter than everyone else and recognizes trends a lot faster than most people and has been able to capitalize off that for almost her entire career. And this is just another example of it.
So Lindsay, I 100%, I'm willing to take your premise that Paris is an early adopter and has blazed the trail for a lot of these things. But wouldn't the caveat to that be that she was the first person to have a fragrance, but she obviously hasn't been the last one. She was the first person, to do a lot of these things, but people followed her. So aren't you kind of proving Paul's point that like every influencer is going to have a digital island now because Paris Hilton has blazed this trail?
Maybe
What do you
eventually.
think about that?
I just don't think, I think like at the current present moment, I don't necessarily think that the conversation has caught up to that. And the thing is, like, more influencers get islands, but also gaming becomes more famous and bigger as well at the same time. So I can't necessarily say which one is ahead of the other at the current juncture.
Gaming and the metaverse are intimately linked. We're talking about Roblox here. Roblox, calls themselves a metaverse platform. They're a game, right? Like it's still a game. And so my question was maybe a bit of a trick question, but I also feel like I never saw the Paris Hilton tweet saying, "Hey, Rihanna, come play FIFA with me." Right? Whereas it was like, it's sort of like we jumped a step. And if we say Paris is the trendsetter, right? The influencer that does everything first. Why was there no sort of pure, and maybe I just missed it because I think she actually did do something in gaming. Now that I think about it, I'm trying to remember what it was, but like
we've talked about her a couple times. I feel like
but
is it Animal Crossing. Someone did an Animal Crossing something.
If anything, Paul, what you're arguing, I think where you're heading and what this demonstrates is how much more mainstream the metaverse will become. We know gaming's massive, right? We compare the numbers against film, against music, against all other industries. Gaming, and by gaming I mean video gaming, not gambling gaming. But gaming is massive. I think what this shows is how easy it is now for gaming's main problem is, and my problem also when I've done this, is it's hard to include a football player and do a Madden tournament and watch that audience carry over. It just doesn't translate. It's hard to bring a rapper or an Instagram influencer or some type of celebrity, have them play a video game like you said, FIFA, Fortnite, any game, and really have that audience stay for the long term. So what this is demonstrating to me is it's not skipping a step in terms of, well, yeah, I guess in terms of popularity, but I don't know about in terms of revenue or size, but certainly in terms of what's going to be more mainstream faster. I think the metaverse will be that link to gaming that will make gaming finally mainstream and cool, I suppose, or really that true nexus of pop culture. So I think what you're arguing, or what I'm seeing, is if Paris Hilton and Cardi B are talking about the metaverse via Roblox, others will, to Lindsay's point, because she is that first troop in, or whatever analogy that I'm drawing a blank on, others will probably follow as far as being early to the metaverse, not necessarily early to gaming.
Antonio says Paris is definitely the founder of influencer. That's interesting. I mean, that's huge credit to Paris. I agree. I tend to agree with that, but I think she doesn't get enough credit for the trail she has blazed, to Lindsay's point. Chris says, is anyone developing technology that prevents the metaverse from sounding like a COD lobby one day? Let's keep the gamers out for now. Chris, your point's a good one in that the lines are blurry still, right? The lines between what is gaming, what is metaverse, what is something you can do in a browser versus something that's a total alternate reality. Just a plug. Jeff talked a little bit about this on this week's the episode coming out on Monday, the episode of Meta Business. This is the podcast Jeff and I do together on the metaverse. But the lines are definitely blurred. So I highly recommend everyone go subscribe to that podcast, Meta Business, and also Lindsay's podcast, Meta Woman, if you want that female perspective.
For
on
more
the
Paris
metaverse.
Hilton content. No.
Yeah.
She may be having Paris Hilton on the show.
Yeah.
That would be, I think I would die. I don't know what we'd be able to record. It'd just be me like sitting there silently staring at the screen the whole time.
All right, guys, let's move on. We have to do everyone's absolute favorite segment. We can't miss it. For those of you who are new to the live stream, this is Jeff's favorite segment.
I'm a juice on this.
We are the premier outlet for gaming chair reviews. Unless if you haven't sort of figured that out, every week we bring you the latest gaming chair news and all the important gaming chair happenings. And I'll be honest, guys, there was not a big new gaming chair release this week. Okay. However, we don't want to leave our gaming chair fans high and dry on this. And so what I did find was a little bit of gaming chair gossip, a little bit of gaming chair drama. Okay. And the headline here is Internet slams woman who sold fiance's gaming chair gifted by his brother before he died.
Wow.
So the story is this is a man who went viral on Reddit. There's a subreddit called Am I the A-hole? It's basically, you write your story and you're asking if you're the a-hole. And in the post, the man explained that his brother died from cancer a few months ago, left him with a gaming chair, which was one of his most special items. And his brother wanted him to have it before he died. And it brought him comfort. It brought him joy. And his fiance, he found out, who was out of a job and couldn't attend the gym because her gym membership lapsed, sold the dead brother's gaming chair to pay for her gym membership. He had a negative reaction. He flipped out on the fiance. And so he was asking the Reddit, the subreddit here, if he was in the wrong, basically, for flipping out on his fiance. Hard-hitting business of gaming and business of esports news here. But question, Lindsay, was he in the wrong here?
No, he was not in the wrong.
You cannot, let's be clear, sell any gaming chairs. They are special prized possessions. No. In all seriousness, I did have one serious gaming chair story.
That one was pretty serious, just not business related. Definitely serious.
Because I didn't have a chair review, so I felt like I had to go the extra mile here. And this one was talking about the global gaming chair market. It's going to grow by $130 million between 2021 and 2025, which actually doesn't seem like a lot, but it's at a CAGR of 5.49%. So that's how fast it will grow year over year.
Lower than inflation.
What's that, Jeff?
That's lower than inflation.
So as excited as we are about the latest gaming chairs, the numbers don't seem to show that hot of a market, right? Do we draw any other conclusion from this? Jeff,
I don't know.
This is your favorite segment.
I think it's just a peripheral. I mean, that doesn't necessarily surprise me. I mean, it's one of those things where I think anyone who gets a chair, and they usually keep that chair for some time, right? Because it's not something you replace, like maybe a mouse or something that is performance related and kind of gets worn out. It's a chair, so you don't see a ton of velocity of spend, which is why I think the growth is probably what it is, which is GDP plus a few points. You do see an influx of new gamers, so I'm a little surprised the number's not a bit higher, just because we are expecting more and more gamers over the next few years to continue entering the ecosystem. But I'm not shocked that this isn't growing as fast as like VR headsets or something. It's like most people who are going to buy a gaming chair in the next 5 years already have a gaming chair, and it's just a replacement market. And every year, some percentage of that install base kind of needs a new chair because they're fat and they sit in it all day and it wears out or whatever. But it's not like every year you get a new gaming chair, which is why it's just not I don't know. It's a hardware is always a little bit tougher to invest in, I think, for things like this.
I got Jeff to do the whole gaming chair segment basically, so I'm happy. Guys, just before we move on, we have we're going to get to a big China story in a second, but I just wanted to mention this live stream is sponsored, supported by YouGov. They produce the absolute very best data on gamers, games, esports fans, the esports audience, the gaming audience all around the world. If you are at all working in this industry, if you're a marketing person, you're working at a brand, you're working at an esports team, if you are at all even thinking about entering the space or selling something to gamers, highly recommend talking to YouGov. Their data is incredibly actionable. We've shown it many, many times. I encourage you guys to go check out. If you search our YouTube channel for YouGov Insights segments, where we highlight some of the data that they produce, you'll see just how actionable the data is. So highly recommend reaching out to YouGov. I will also put a link in the chat. It's yougov.com/gaming-esports. And you can find a bunch of free reports there. And if you need a direct connection to the folks at YouGov, any one of us, myself, Jimmy, Jeff, Lindsay, all of us, happy to introduce you directly. So yougov.com/gaming-esports. Go check it out. Show them some love. They are very, very supportive of this live stream. And I will also just tease, we are going to have another YouGov Insight segment. I think next week we have some new stuff that they've been coming out with that we are going to highlight next week. So definitely look forward to that. All right, guys, can we talk about China here for a second? China in the news, and I feel like the Chinese situation is just getting worse and worse. But I think the headline here is going to shock you guys, like actually shock you. And the headline here is China gaming crackdown freeze on new video game licenses extends into 2022 as 14,000 gaming related firms shut down. So regulators, it says the subheadlines, have not released a list of approved new video game titles since the end of July, marking the longest suspension since a 9-month hiatus in 2018. As a result, about 14,000 small studios and gaming-related firms in China went out of business over the past several months. I'm curious, just so you guys know, it says the 14,000 that shut down, there were 18,000 that shut down throughout 2020. I did not know China had that many gaming-related firms, but these seem like massive, massive numbers of shutdowns. What do you guys make of this? Like, we've talked about the China story. Jimmy, is the 14,000 number shocking to you?
I mean, definitely. I didn't know what number to expect, though. Honestly, I don't know what is a fair number and what is excessive. It just, it's a dark story. It's not a great thing for the industry, and kind of continuing down this dark path for that region that we've been discussing for a while now. So honestly, I just, I don't know. It kind of puts me in a bad space. And
what was the number for 2020 versus the number for this year?
This is what I don't fully understand. The article says, let me just read it. It says about 14,000 of these enterprises. So it says thousands of small studios and video game related firms, including those involved in merchandising, advertising, and publishing, right? So it could be a company making jerseys or something, went out of business over the past several months. About 14,000 of these enterprises have been deregistered since July, according to a report on Friday by state-run newspaper, which cited data from business registry tracking firm Tianyancha. That number signified a considerable acceleration from the 18,000 video gaming firms that shut down throughout 2020. So I guess the number is 18,000 for the entirety of 2020 and 14,000 just since July. So,
like, to me, I'm almost more surprised. Like, I'm almost more surprised that so many shut down during 2020, which obviously we had the pandemic, but at the same time, it was like the greatest time ever to be a video game company. So, like 14,000 shutting down during the best of times, and then even if we annualize it, because I get that you're comparing a year versus 6 months, 14,000, so 28,000 versus 18, like it's more, but it's not like that much
it's
more.
50% more.
Yeah, but considering how much, like how good 2020 was, like it does. I don't know.
You're saying it's not. Does anyone think there's a hidden variable that it's not because of the government restrictions? That it's because, I don't know, right? Like supply chain in the US is so bogged down that, the small company making mouse pads, like the 4-person company that manufactures mouse pads, goes out of business. Or like, does anyone think there's a hidden variable, or do you believe that it truly, this is direct correlation to government restrictions?
I mean, I would think that a lot of these are more service-based since goods are easier. Like, I wouldn't think that there would be a 4-person company making mouse pads in China just because goods are mass-produced and easily sourced there. So probably talking about very small firms in which I would guess they're service-based, software-based, perhaps. Might be people doing like side gigs too, or that type of work. And so it might not be as in depth as we're thinking. But I still, even with those caveats or potential explanations, it still seems like the government restrictions are just having an absolutely adverse impact on the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, but we also don't know like how many of these 14,000 are actually game studios, right? Like, and this to me was maybe the most shocking part is, even if only 10% of those are game studios, right? And the other 90% are just the ancillary stuff around gaming. 1,400 studios to shut down feels like a huge amount. Like, it stopped me for a moment and it got me thinking, like, maybe I have absolutely no concept of the scale of sort of the indie gaming market in China, right? Like, I guess the North American sort of skewed viewpoint is there are a lot of indie gaming studios in the US, but I don't think we're talking tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. Could it be that the indie gaming market in China is just so massive that almost no one here sort of has a sense of the scale? Right? Like there could be 100,000 small game studios. So if 2,000 close, maybe it's not that big. We're not talking about that big of an issue.
Don't you think it could be like ancillary stuff though too? Like
it can. It said, right? It's not just.
No. I just like like things that go hand in hand that are still software but aren't games, like stats companies and track. I mean, the professional scene there is huge. So companies that like track professional stuff, or like I feel like there's a lot more possibilities than them being.
I think without knowing the denominator, it's really hard to know whether what the real impact is here. Right? Like, is this 18% of all companies shutting down, or is this like 2%? I it would be hard to believe there's that many video game companies out there, but like that's why I was kind of trying to frame the lens of the 2020 piece, because if you were like, hey, 50 companies shut down in 2020 and then in 2021 18,000 shut down, I'd be like, well, that's pretty dramatic. But to me, that increase didn't seem that shocking, even though.
But Jeff, between 2020 and 2021, you have 32,000 companies that we know of, right? We don't know what the first half of 2021 was, but we know between 2020 and the second half of 2021, you had 32,000 shutdowns.
Fair. We also don't know how big these companies are, right? Like, a lot of these could be startups. Like, if you look at the US, how many esports startups do you think have shut down in the US in the last 2 years? Like it
That's
could be
fair.
that, if we're talking about 3-person teams or someone trying to raise money, like, it could easily be in the tens of thousands as well. So I just don't know if we have enough lens to look at this to say, okay, this is because of the crackdown and this is really bad, or how does it relate to the rest of the ecosystem?
It's definitely a lot of speculation,
So no
political or
one
otherwise.
like do any of you feel like massive alarm bells should be sounding at this point? Like I know I asked that question in some
For
form
sure,
or
I think
another.
Yeah.
Occam's razor is like clearly the simplest answer is that the shutdowns are not good. If they're not approving games and you're a studio trying to make a game, like that's bad. You're not going to be able to go sell your game, so you're going to shut down. So I think the obvious answer is there should be alarm bells ringing. We don't really understand why the Chinese government is kind of basically kneecapping an industry. We know why they're saying they're doing it, but to me, it doesn't really pass the smell test. Um, but it's hard to speculate on the whims of the Chinese government. But yeah, the simple answer is it is having an impact. But I think without us having enough data to inform our opinions, it's sort of just us taking the easiest answer.
Guys, let's shift gears here. CES is going on, and there have been some interesting announcements coming out of CES related to gaming. Obviously, the major ones we're not going to dive into, like Nvidia, Intel, but I did think there was an interesting one here out of Samsung because of what they're tying it into, and the headline here is Samsung Gaming Hub. That's the name of the product. Will make game streaming far more accessible. So what it is, it's a centralized interface to give players easier access to their cloud gaming subscription. So from your Samsung TV, you will be able to access the Samsung Gaming Hub. And what it will do is it will give you access to NVIDIA GeForce Now, Google Stadia, Utomic, and it says with more to be added in the future. So there's this image here of sort of all the different sort of game streaming services that you'll be able to get directly from your TV with basically no other hardware. And I'm curious if any of you think this will, because Samsung sells a lot of TVs, right? They're a major player in the TV market. Will this have any impact in your minds around adoption of cloud streaming, right? Like, is bundling it with the TV natively in the TV's operating system part of the solution and part of what was missing in your minds, or does this not move the needle? Jimmy, maybe start with you.
It doesn't do anything to me that Apple TV doesn't already offer with its own games in arcade. Kind of seems like what we'll see Netflix and the whole Netflix gaming accomplish as well. I don't want to give away too much from our interview today with John Pan from Facebook Gaming, but one of his insights, which I loved, was a lot of gaming companies are innovating on ideas and coming out with products that no one asked for or needs. There's not this massive demand for cloud-based gaming, and that was his take right on why Stadia is a failure. In America, we're kind of blessed, but also obsessed with hardware and having these beefy, gaming PCs and consoles and things that it's just not this massive need for any of us, or at least any of the gaming community. So when I first read the story, I thought it was really cool because my TV, I prefer to use the apps that the TV has than adding like a Roku or some other box. I just think it works. One, I like having only one remote, and two, I think it's a pretty clean experience depending on which TV I'm using. Some of them are definitely poorly designed. And if anyone's going to design something sleek and that works well, I think Samsung is going to have a better shot at it than most. But what kind of game can they really facilitate, and what kind of tech and capabilities will it have? It's going to be like Crossy Road, I think, or Tetris, or something simple that will certainly be fun. But again, this is really bringing a low level of web browser type gaming to the masses. This isn't anything that I'm going to look to play Valorant or New World or Halo or anything real on. So I don't know. Kudos for stepping in the right direction.
Does no one see a future where, like, I feel like one of the big trends is TVs just integrating more and more functionality that used to be in separate boxes, set-top boxes, etc. Right, like where the TV out of the box does most of what you want the TV to do, and supports all these apps, and you can install stuff and the whole bit. Like, does no one think we're not that far away from, forget about cloud gaming, from getting a TV that comes with an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Switch built in, essentially, some kind of collaboration where the console is just part of the TV? Jeff, thoughts?
I mean, it's interesting. I think that I'm trying to understand why that wouldn't be the case. I guess you need the hardware. Maybe because it does seem like something that would be very easy for an Xbox or Sony to do. Maybe it's because people replace their TVs a lot more frequently than they replace their consoles. So it's like, why would you? I think, at least you guys both made a face, so maybe that's not true. But I feel like console,
like a similar cycle.
Maybe I would say like you can get a new TV technology comes out every couple of years, whereas new consoles come out every 8 years. So like, maybe it's a longer replacement cycle. I don't know.
Take it for what it's worth. I just did a quick Google, and I don't know anything about this site, but 4 and 10 years on a lifespan of a TV. That's such a wide range, honestly.
Pretty similar.
Yeah.
Chris says, funny how Xbox was trying to be a media center and failed. Now the TV is trying to be that. But like, it makes sense, right? Like,
good, Chris. Yeah.
It's super insightful.
I mean, the TV should be the media center. Like, why do you want to attach a different box when you already have one thing? I mean, I'm a boomer. I can't set up any of this technology. I want one device. I click the button and I just tell it, play Madden, and then Madden comes on.
You identify as a boomer. There's a difference. That's just a result of your own desire not to learn.
But you get the Samsungs of the world, right, who spend a lot of money, it seems, trying to get gaming credibility, right? Trying to make inroads into gaming through their phones, through whatever, right? It seems like the TV, they already have the beachhead. I'm just surprised they have, like, I like this because I think it takes them one step closer. I just feel like it's not far enough, right? Just integrating with some cloud gaming services is nice, but I feel like there's the bigger opportunity.
This wasn't even the most interesting gaming related story at CES. I mean, you guys know what it was, right?
What was the most interesting?
Sony making an electric vehicle.
Yeah.
They are coming for Elon. Elon Musk tried to get out of his lane and get into video games, and now Sony is taking over electronic vehicles. I'm going to be driving around in a Sony car very soon.
Isn't Apple making one too? I mean,
supposedly.
The rumor.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
But
I don't know.
Here's the question.
Big news. It's big news. Huge.
And do you think gaming will be a big part of that, Jeff? Is that?
I hope so. Why else would they do it?
I didn't watch the keynote, so I didn't see it in any of the articles.
Neither did I. I mean, to be fair, that article I sent may have been like The Onion or something, but I think it was real.
No, it was.
We're on hour. We're past an hour in here. If you made it this far, you already know who we are and what we do here.
Chris says, if Sony doesn't make a PSX memory card as the key fob, I'm out. Chris, I think you need to be consulting on this project. No, look, it's funny you bring that up, Jeff, but it's again one of those cases of like they feel like they didn't take it far enough, because you would think Sony, it would be all about the entertainment and gaming tie-in, right? Or photography, or like all of other Sony strengths that you could tie into a vehicle. Instead, it felt a lot of just like, it was just more of the same, right? Like, it was no different than they had unveiled a new Tesla. So Robert says, cars and gaming, Tesla just learned the hard way not to go there too soon. I'm still so bullish on that, Robert. I really am. I think it's so untapped.
So you must love the Sony. I mean, think about it. Who makes
but
it better?
Sony's not doing it. That's my point. There was no like, oh my God, the car has the power of 6 PlayStations, and it's like you'll be able to, every person in every seat will be able to play their own, and like, where was that?
Horsepower or 4
That's exactly what I was
PlayStation 5.
thinking. Throw out horsepower. How many PlayStations is it?
It's heated by PlayStation 5s in the seats, right? Like you don't. Um, all right, let's move on, guys. Let's get to. I have a couple of sort of list stories which I want to talk about.
Ooh, lightning
Like
round.
like
Lightning
2021. You want to do a lightning round?
Yeah.
We
I
could.
always want to do lightning round. They're
Okay.
so fun.
Lightning round. Let's do it. I'm going to bring up a bunch of stories here. Hang on. Let me get them in a better order than if we're going to do them as a lightning round. Okay, let's start with this one. You have what? 20 seconds, 30 seconds, no more, guys. Okay. One thought. The first story from TechCrunch. The headline here: Alienware's Concept Nix is an at-home gaming server that may never exist. So what this is, just a quick 2-second sort of rundown. It's a server that will hold all your games, and it'll be able to stream it to multiple devices in the home, regardless of the hardware. So even if you have an old computer, or if it's a smart TV or a laptop or whatever, it can stream those games from this server, which you're going to put in your home, to all of those devices. You love this, way better than cloud gaming. Hate it. Thoughts, Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, sounds cool, but it says it might not ever exist. So what are we even talking about here? This is a story about nothing. It's like, here's a great idea, but you know,
it's all about nothing.
yeah, exactly. I've been watching a lot
Lindsay?
of Seinfeld, by the way.
Big if true, but it's got negative latency vibes.
You think it's just not going to work?
I mean, I guess it could, but yeah, like Jimmy said, kind of a nothing story until it happens. If it happens and if it comes out, it's very cool.
Jeff?
I love it. I've always wanted to be able to game on my smart fridge. It's perfect. Now I don't have to miss a beat when I'm making food.
When you're making hot chocolate, more specifically.
All right, this one was a good list story. The biggest esports investments of 2021. I want to get down to the biggest one. Obviously, was 100 Thieves, 60 million. VSPN number 2 at 60 million. Envy Gaming number 3, 40 million. Overactive Media 40. Misfits 35. Team BDS 31.5. Abios 29.7. GameSquare Esports 27. Excel Esports 22.9. And Nodewin Gaming 21.5. So the takeaway here is, if you look at this list, I think 6 or 7, I think it's 7 out of the 10 are all esports teams. This is the top biggest esports investments of 2021. Thoughts on this, guys, and thoughts on, call it 7 out of 10 being all esports orgs.
They're missing
Jeff,
they're missing one acquisition in there done by Esports Entertainment Group, $43 million acquisition of Helix and GG Circuit.
Yeah, I think these are investments, not acquisitions.
It's unfortunate. No, Abios was not. So my second comment, that would be my first comment. Second comment of that list, I think Abios will be the best investment. They're an esports odds making data company that was bought by forget who they were bought by, but it's going to be the best investment on that list.
Lindsay? We're going in just reverse order here.
It's interesting that they're all teams. I'm hoping that maybe some better team strategies emerge in the next couple years and some real profit on something.
Jimmy?
7 out of 10 investments in esports orgs. 7 out of 10 investors will be shooting themselves in the foot in a few months. Like, why did I do this?
Are you saying that from experience?
Yeah,
I'm very happy, but we're nowhere near those evaluations or requiring that amount of capital. So
I just want to read 2 of these comments here. Roman says, "Hey guys, thanks for being the best place for my weekly esports news." Roman, thank you so much for saying that. We love having you here. Welcome. Chris says, "Where's FTX?" Well, I mean, Chris, that I don't think that qualifies as gaming or esports company.
No, but he's saying
unless you're talking about the TSM.
They did a lot of. I think those are sponsorship.
Sponsorship,
deals,
yeah, commercial deals.
Did a lot of spending.
A lot of spending.
Yeah, which this is very specific to investment, which they do differentiate. All right, let's talk about this one. This one's maybe a bit. This one's perfect for the lightning round. Allied Esports announces engagement of investment banking firm Benchmark to provide financial advisory services. So they've hired an investment banker. They're not saying why. I'd love the tinfoil hat theories. Jimmy, start with you.
Because there's an expertise there that's needed.
Yes, but are they going to be acquired? Are they going to raise money? Are they going to merge? What are we thinking is going to happen? Because you wouldn't hire a banker unless they're maybe out to sell the business, which we know they
they're
are.
weighing all those. I think they're weighing those options, and they'll probably take whichever. Honestly, whichever's offered to them. I don't know if they have that many options.
Okay, Lindsay.
You don't think this is necessarily a good sign given their current trajectory, but who knows? Maybe they can turn it around.
Jeff?
So I think it may have mentioned in the article that they were hiring this bank. So what happened? Allied basically sold the World Poker Tour business, and they have been trying to sell the Allied Esports business to basically become like another a SPAC, a pool of capital. And I think they may have mentioned in that article that this bank was hired to help them essentially use the cash that they now have to go buy another business, which I guess makes sense. It's a little weird though, because it's like, isn't that the whole point of your company now? And you're sort of outsourcing it to an investment bank. It's a bit odd, but I guess that's what you do in these situations is hire a bank to kind of bring you a bunch of targets. So I think that's what it's for. They are trading below the value of the cash, which is super unusual. So might be a good time to buy.
This is not investment advice, just to be
not
clear.
Investment advice.
All right, let's move on. We're almost done here. Reddit's top 5 most viewed subreddits of 2021 were all gaming related. Gaming is and always has been a huge part of Reddit, and the site saw a huge uptick in content related to gaming over the past year. Reddit has more than 100,000 communities, and r/gaming, the subreddit r/gaming, is the 4th most followed on the platform, with over 19 million Redditors having joined since its creation in 2007. They mentioned our Genshin Impact, our League of Legends, our gaming, our FF14, our Clips GTA are listed as the year's most viewed subs. So related, obviously, to some very popular games like Grand Theft Auto, League of Legends, Genshin Impact, etc. Anyone here surprised that gaming is dominating on Reddit? Jeff, start with you.
Okay.
No, I don't even know if I have a hot take here, but I'm not surprised that gaming is popular on Reddit. It's just is what it is, I think.
Lindsay, talk to me about gaming on Reddit.
I'm surprised that it hasn't been more popular. Like, I'm surprised that this is the year that that they've become more popular, I guess.
I mean, to be clear, it didn't say anything about 2020 or whatever, but 2021 clearly was a big year on Reddit. Let me ask maybe a more direct question. Why do I get the feeling like Reddit is still not mainstream from a gamer perspective?
Really?
As a social platform. I don't know if this is totally anecdotal. This is my gut feel. And I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
I don't, but I'm curious to hear why you feel that way.
I mean, start with Jimmy. I don't know if you have thoughts on this or in general.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's so many different outlets to go to get your news and your social interaction and engagement. Reddit that doesn't rank high on my personal ones that I use, but I think it just depends on who you ask. I've always known about Reddit. I just, for whatever reason, never fully adopted the platform. Always opted for things like Twitter and Instagram now with videos and photo. I will say though, Reddit r/business of esports, if you want to check out our content. We recently launched it. It's still very early days, so go take a look real quick before Paul makes one of us clean it up. But it's going to be a fun place to get if you are a Reddit user and prefer to get your news, your insight, all of that good stuff. Reddit, the r/business of esports for our hot takes.
This is one of the reasons why I did this story, because I did want to mention that.
Oh,
And so
sorry, I
everyone
took
should
that
go
from you. I'm
join.
sorry, Paul.
No, it's okay. This is perfect. r/the business of esports. So definitely go join that. Join the community. We share a bunch of stuff here. A lot of our content here. In fact, Jimmy, I'll have you link in the chat all of our subreddits if that's okay. And would love for anyone watching this, whether as a VOD or live right now, to go join those subreddits and participate. All right, guys, I have just, I think one, I did say I was going to do the team vitality story. So let me just bring that one up, and then we'll finish with one quick last one. Team Vitality secure €50 million investment to create more super teams, announce new 2022 CSGO roster. We have what it takes to be the best CSGO team in the world. I'm curious what you guys think. This is another huge team raise. I don't know what the current conversion is on euros, but this might be bigger than the 100 Thieves investment. It happened in 2022 though, so it's not on that other list. But I think this converts to more than $60 million if someone wants to do that quickly. Thoughts on this and the focus on CSGO? Is this too focused, Jeff?
It's a lot of money to raise, for particularly, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier when Chris brought it up when we were talking about Dr. Disrespect's comment. It's hard when you're trying to be just a competitive team and not kind of have an influencer angle to really justify that kind of raise. It's a lot of money. CSGO, certainly a popular esport. When you're that focused though, I think it's gonna be tough to see a return on this investment.
Lindsay, thoughts on Team Vitality?
I know, it's just so hard. Yeah, this is a lot to put into one. CSGO obviously is also one of the better developed scenes with larger prize pools, and it's been around for a while. So I guess it's better than putting 50 million into the Call of Duty League, maybe. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. Probably not that good, but not awful.
So it's 56.6 million US. I'd be a lot more excited if this was a Valorant announcement. Honestly, that's my own bias. If CSGO's been around for a long time, I remember bunny hopping, way back in the day. And it's fun to follow some teams. It doesn't have that sex appeal that a lot of the newer FPSs have for some reason. So I like that it's an institution, like Lindsay mentioned, right? It has the following, it has everything I think required of a popular esports title. It just doesn't have that new polish and excitement around it that a game like Valorant does. So I'd be more excited if this was a different related story, but yeah, a lot of money.
I mean, to be fair, it's at least a differentiated strategy, right? Like unlike 100 Thieves that's saying, we're going to do merch, we're going to do this. What they're saying is we just want to build super teams, right? Like get the highest paid, best players in the world, which, I think is a flawed strategy, but it's a strategy at least. Where what caught my attention was the investor. It's a fund called rewired.gg. And I did a quick look. I don't know how accurate the data is. All I could find was that it was a €50 million fund, and they've put 34 million into this investment, into this Team Vitality investment, which I mean is a lot of conviction.
Gotta be like an SPV or something. Like there's no way,
right?
That's just doesn't make any sense.
That's a big bet on one thing. I don't see this going well for them at all, unfortunately. But you got to admire the conviction. I think that's my take on this. You really do. All right, guys. I have one last story. We're not going to do this lightning round style. It's a list that I just think is worth having a bit of fun with. Hang on, let me find it. And it's related to Steam. Steam came out with some data on their best-selling games of 2021. Okay, and this is for chat as well. Who here thinks? I guess what they did was they organized games into categories. So they called them like platinum level, gold, silver, and bronze tiers. but without giving sort of exact number of downloads or dollars. They just sort of organized them into these vague tiers so that you wouldn't have all the data, I guess. But if we look just at the platinum top sellers, so that's the top sellers on Steam. Anyone have thoughts on the games that would be in there? Well, here it is. And what I thought was interesting was a lot of old titles. Apex Legends, Grand Theft Auto, Dota 2, PUBG, Rainbow Six, right? Like literally
Yes,
none
me
of these
too.
games came out in 2021, but these were still the top sellers. I thought what was also interesting was they have a new releases category, which required the game to come out in 2021. There may be no surprises, right? Like Age of Empires, Battlefield, Farming Simulator, Halo, New World, Resident Evil, Valheim. And then the most played category, which to reach this tier, you had to have over 200,000 peak players. There were only 10 on this list. And that's Apex, CSGO, Cyberpunk, Dota 2, GTA, Halo, New World, PUBG, Rust, and Valheim. Any surprises in here, guys? Any takeaways from all of this?
I'm really
Lindsay?
impressed with New World and Valheim. They had a great year.
Because they don't fit sort of the traditional mold of the other games. Is that sort of the feeling? They weren't like what?
Yeah,
Why
well, especially
single out those two?
Well, especially Valheim was such a small studio. I mean, New World, I guess. Well, Valheim because it was a small studio, and New World because it was, I mean, moving in and competing with World of Warcraft is really hard. So, very impressed with those two for those two reasons.
Is no one surprised that like GTA still in that list? You know, a Rainbow Six still in that list, a Dota 2 still in that list, CSGO still in that list. Like, what does it say about the gaming industry in 2022 if these were the numbers from 2021? Is there a big takeaway here that like the life cycle of games has just way longer now, of successful games at least?
I wonder if it also speaks to like how gamers are growing up and still playing old favorites too. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Also, I mean,
No,
I agree with you on that. I also think, the amount of money that the developers are spending on these games is so astronomical that it's great for them to see such a long lifespan of the title, right? If you're building $100 million plus product and then you have that short of a turnaround, that's kind of a sucky thing to look at. I would say I'd be more surprised, Paul, if we weren't talking about these games all year long, right? Like a lot of these aren't surprising just because they've still been in the headlines. If you're a first-time listener or maybe don't have your finger on the pulse as much as we do, then perhaps that's a different story. But this is kind of just I get the point that you're making and the insight on like, wow, these are some old titles. People either aren't innovating or people aren't, don't care for what's new. But New World was on there and Halo was on there, so there were a couple
Crazy
of new
to
titles
see
as
how
well.
New World has just fallen off. If only someone on this podcast had said that was going to happen when I was told that it was going to take over the world and we'd all be playing only New World.
To be fair, we don't know. We haven't seen their first DLC yet, right? We haven't seen a first big.
The player chart doesn't look good though.
Does not look good. I have one other question related to this, guys, which is the obvious absence of any Activision Blizzard titles. Now, obviously, this is by choice, right? Because you can't get those titles on Steam, so they wouldn't make the Steam charts. But does anyone think, Jeff, maybe get your view on this? Do you think that Activision Blizzard has made a mistake, right? They're really the only big publisher not on Steam. Do you think it's a mistake?
I don't think they've made a mistake just because of how long and how popular Battle.net is with the Blizzard kind of PC gaming community. And if they were on Steam, they'd have to give up, I guess it's 30%, I think, right? So
yeah,
they'd have to give that
not
share.
At their size. I think it's less at the scale.
Maybe whatever, 20 to 30%. If Blizzard's revenue is almost $1 billion, like that's $300 million. So to me, it makes sense to do that in-house. EA, for the longest time, their titles were not on Steam. Obviously, they put them on Steam, and they must have determined, hey, we're losing enough people that it makes sense for us to go pay that rev share to get the extra distribution. Activision has done the same calculus, and these people are not idiots. I think that they probably have done that math and decided that the extra distribution isn't worth what they'd be giving up in terms of margin. And I think that's just because of the nature of how ingrained Battle.net is within their specific community. If they were launching a new title, like a new Overwatch, maybe it would make sense to get the extra distribution on Steam. But if you're a Warcraft player, I think you've been using Battle.net for 15 years, so you don't need Steam.
Chris says, sounds like Epic Games Store is making a dent. I mean, Chris, the problem is we don't know, right? Like, I don't know. We definitely can't conclude that from this article, right? Like, there's nothing in this article, I think, that makes us draw that conclusion. But no question that they've attracted attention away from Steam. Like, I think that's whether that in the long run hurts Steam's bottom line. Problem is we may never know, right? Like, Valve being a private company, we just don't have the data, unfortunately. Guys, I just want to mention quickly that one of the things with this live stream, and it's Jimmy that brought it to my attention, so I just want to mention it. If you want to comment, it's way easier to do it on YouTube or on Twitch. Those are the best places. Unfortunately, I think LinkedIn and Twitter don't allow for user comments on the live stream anymore. So while you can watch the live stream, for whatever reason, I think LinkedIn and Twitter no longer allow, well, at least we can't see it that easily. You may be able to comment, but for whatever reason, we may not be able to see it. So highly recommend, watching this on YouTube or Twitch, because those are the best places in terms of interaction with us. On that note, guys, that wraps up this week's weekly news show. Quick reminder, we do this every Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We really appreciate everyone who comes and participates. If you haven't already, make sure to follow us everywhere on YouTube, on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, you name it. Everywhere you get our content, please give us a follow, a like, or whatever platform you're on. And tell your friends and family about the weekly news show. We really appreciate it. It's how we've continued to grow. Definitely stay tuned for tomorrow's podcast. Go subscribe to Meta Business and Meta Woman. And as always, guys, thank you all for coming. And we will see you next week.